Welcome to another edition of Be the Change Georgia, where we amplify the voices of the inspiring business leaders surrounding the B Corp and social impact movements across the Southeast to help you learn how to build your legacy at the intersection of people, planet, purpose, and profit. Today, there are more than 8,000 B Corps in over 80 countries and 180 different industries, unified by one common goal: transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. If you want to learn how to plug into our purpose-driven business community alongside the inspiring leaders we feature on this show, check us out at blocalgeorgia.com or on Instagram or Facebook at blocalgeorgia, and we'll hope to meet you at our next event. Today, you'll learn from Enrique Alvarez, Managing Director at Vector Global Logistics, a company dedicated to changing the world through supply chain operations. Enrique is passionate about the intersection of purpose and business, and under his leadership, Vector has grown to include global offices while still maintaining a results-based work culture. In this episode, Enrique shares how Vector Global Logistics has built a culture of purpose that attracts top talent, better suppliers, and even more loyal customers. We also dive into how the company's humanitarian work and disaster relief efforts are integrated into its business model. Enrique opens up about balancing business growth with his personal values and how to instill confidence in teams to take risks and make mistakes. Stay tuned to learn more about how purpose can be a competitive advantage, the power of honest storytelling in business, and the value of B Corp certification in today's market. Enjoy. Enrique Alvarez, welcome to Be the Change Georgia. Excited to finally have you on.
Nathan, it's always a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, excited to. It's just a lot of cool, what to unpack and fun stories to tell, and honestly, it's in a weird way too. I have the under the hood vision of Vector for a little bit with working with y'all on the B Corp certification. So I'm excited to kind of unpack some of that awesomeness too with the listeners and hopefully inspire some current leaders, future leaders, and everybody in between.
Of course, we're incredibly proud about that. You know that it's been a very hard certification to get, and yes, I would love to share whatever we learned throughout the process. And thank you once again. I don't think we'd have been able to do it without your support.
Well, it was fun. I heard somebody earlier, I was on a call, and they said, well, it's kind of easy. I said, yeah, it's kind of easy if you're doing all the right things.
But it's definitely worth it. And it's definitely something that you should be feeling very proudly about after completing it. So thanks again.
Yeah, definitely worth a couple victory laps. So let's do one of those. So Enrique, one of the things we talked about in our little podcast planning call, whatever we want to call it, was a story that I kind of want to share was how your upbringing helped shape your perspective on making a difference and giving back. And so I'd love to unpack that story a little bit and also talk about what experiences or moments, help shape who you were going to become as a leader and kind of your philosophies around work and business and creating a work culture.
Yeah, well, once again, thanks. I'm glad to be here and happy to share this with your audience. I really have to thank my parents, right? I've been lucky my whole life. I was born into a good family, and both my parents loved us very, very much. They are hardworking, committed, professional, and their main thing was to give us education, probably some of the things that they themselves did not have in Mexico City at the time. And so that's something that I really value a lot. In particular, the giving back comes a lot from my mom, because she was a little more vocal about it, and you could see it on her daily day-to-day activities. But my dad was also equally caring, and I found out recently when he passed away, a lot of people that were there share stories that I had no idea happened, but kind of spoke to the same message that they both kind of instilled in us, which is the more you give, the more you get.
That's got to be an interesting experience to, I don't know. I mean, not that you were not that it changed your perspective on your dad, but to realize that your dad was even.
No, it was very interesting. It was really, really interesting. And I never really got a chance to see that part of him, or at least not talk about it. I'm pretty sure that I sensed it and I kind of learned with the example, but so many stories of people that came and said, "Hey, did you know this is what your dad did to me?" This, I'm like, no, I had no idea. So I felt very proud, very emotional, and of course, again, I kind of understood where my upbringing was heading, and some of the really cool things that my parents did to me and to my siblings. So I'm again thankful and appreciate everything that people have done for me in my life. By no means this is something that I have accomplished on my own. It's everyone else involved, but me. I kind of feel like I'm just a little grain of salt in the whole mix. So I'm thankful for that.
But there's almost like a recipe of like loving parents, giving you the right to whatever the right ingredients for the recipe to be successful, and then some level of trust and ingenuity that landed you here.
Yeah, good community, good friends. I had good mentors growing up. When I was very little, I went to the Boy Scouts and all that little hardship that you go through, like camping out and not having a bed to sleep on and walking through the rain and the cold weather. And I feel like it all has to do with shaping who we are. So, kind of every experience that we as kids kind of experienced helped us to be the person that we are now. And it's a very, I guess, dynamic situation too, right? I mean, I feel like you keep evolving, being and learning every day.
Yeah, no, that's that's funny too. The Boy Scout story. There's no.
I loved it. I love nature, and nature for me is a very important thing. So
Yeah, well, it instills that love of quiet and peace and all those things that come with being outside. That I have a friend who actually her email signature is "I hope you got outside today."
I like that. That's a good tagline.
Yeah, I'm also she's in Boulder, Colorado, where you're like, must be
Sure.
nice to get outside today in Boulder, Colorado.
That makes a little more sense for sure.
So, but also like from that story, like there's almost a piece of where I can see where some of your like, well, I'll back it up here for a second so our listeners know that like so Enrique and Vector Global Logistics and we're working on B Corp cert and we kind of like broke the system like and I don't mean this in any way against B Lab. B Lab didn't know what to do with us because while everybody talks about the results only work environment as a buzzword or and there was the row book that came out years ago, but like it kind of feels like it faded into the distance and y'all are still living that. And so when we got to a lot of the verification pieces with B Lab, they were like, well, what's the minimum? Well, there's no minimum. There's just get your job done. We treat you like an
Right.
adult. And I was talking earlier about like kind of like that recipe for success that seemed to have worked for you and not necessarily did that lead to this results only work environment, but I love to kind of like unpack that philosophy a little bit because it is something that I think a lot of people you struggle with. It's okay in theory, I get it, I love it, I want to empower my people, and then one person takes advantage of it or this happens, and then we kind of tend to just like okay, we're getting rid of all of it. How have you guys been able to press that ahead and maintain results only work environment as your whatever your modus operandi at Vector?
Well, it's really like a thing that you have to work on every day. It's having a results only work environment means that everyone is not only completely bought into the culture and what we're doing, but that you have to practice it every day. And it's hard because, for example, not being at the office or being at the office by yourself or myself, you're still kind of thinking, well, is everyone else doing something? Am I the only one working here? And so it takes time, it takes a lot of confidence, and then above all, it takes people that are committed and understand the benefits of having such a culture. And for us, it's one of our most important competitive advantages, right? Being in a logistics supply chain industry where we ship containers from all over the world, not really having to deal with the 9 to 5 mentality or schedule gives us a huge leg up over everyone else.
Yeah, and that is a tough industry. I mean, people that have never worked in logistics. I worked in LTL, like short and primarily short regional trucking, but still like that. I always say if you're grateful that things are on your shelves, thank a truck driver or somebody at the port, somebody on a ship, somebody or the dispatcher, the freight broker somewhere sitting behind a desk, and then something goes wrong or the ship doesn't have room or the order didn't go through, and it is a very 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 stressful job and stressful industry.
Absolutely. Very ungrateful too. So if things go well, no one really cares. But if something happens, which it always does, then of course there's a lot of implications that are not good.
Yeah, we remember that from 2021. Where's my stuff? Uh, Beyond your core business, your company does a lot of work around the world, and this is something else I'm eager to unpack. So whether it's assisting with disaster relief, it's humanitarian efforts, it's a commitment to X number of containers of supplies per Y number of containers shipped. Can you tell us more about these initiatives and why they're so important to your business model and that culture?
Yes, of course. And I think that there's different things that we have to talk about. First one is some of the corporate giving initiatives that we have. And you mentioned that correctly already. Like for every single office that we open, we're currently have presence in Mexico, US, Chile, Peru. We have our own team in Vietnam, Malaysia, India, and China. So for every shipment that we conduct through our teams, we're donating a part of the shipments to help different causes. And we are incredibly thankful for the opportunity to help great organizations. We in the US are giving 50 meals to children in Africa and in Kenya in particular. In Mexico, we work with children and their families with cancer, and Chile is children with special needs. So no matter where it is in the world, we talk to the team, and the team select a cause that it's dear to them, and that's how we kind of help them. That's on the complete corporate giving side of things. Now, on top of that, we have our relief effort initiative, and then we also work with a lot of non-for-profits to help them ship their products around the world. So there's different things that kind of make our culture very purpose-oriented and driven. Why we do that? And I'll be lying to you if I said that it's because we're nice people and we're happy and we love everyone. No, we certainly have a very good culture, and we're certainly purpose driven if you talk to every single person in our team, but we're doing it because it's a competitive advantage. Just like the B Corp certification that we got, we strongly believe that companies these days need to mean something to people. They need to have a stronger why, and that why has to be honest, because consumers and people in general right now can really smell when you're just saying that you like sustainability or that you're just offsetting CO2 as a marketing stunt to promote your sales. And that's not the kind of company we are. And I don't think that companies like that are going to be around much longer, especially when our kids start to grow and start to make all those final decisions. I feel like it's very important to truly understand who you are, what kind of company you are, and then just be honest about it. And the truth is, if you talk to everyone in my team, people will tell you that we're here to change the world, and we just happen to do logistics. So it's exciting for that reason. You can really feel it every day.
Well, I'm glad you said that too, because it's something I don't say is missing in the B Corp space, but a lot of times we do. Yeah, it's the right thing to do, but we also believe that this gives us a competitive advantage. But on the same note, is it's okay for that to give us a competitive. If doing good gives us a competitive advantage, and our doing good and our success leads more companies to follow us, then aren't we starting to kind of shift that demand curve a little bit? Aren't we starting to like pull capitalism with us? And like, isn't that what this whole thing is about? So I think we have having to get people out of their shell where they're not afraid to admit that like we do good things because they're good things, but we do good things because they're also good for our bottom line.
Right. And I can actually give a couple of very clear examples on how you can see that in a company, right, or in a business. First and foremost, you have purpose, you can attract better talent. So if you start to attract better talent that's recently graduating, then you will become a better company just because you actually have better people in your company, right? So that's one. Then you can get better suppliers because we currently see companies that are more sustainably driven and more caring and more purpose oriented. And so if you actually work with similar companies, you'll probably be working with suppliers that believe in what you believe, and they're probably going to be stronger corporations founded in uh, with stronger financials and stronger expertise in what you do. Then also you can get better customers, right? Customers that are not necessarily 100% of the time price driven. Customers that actually believe that if you pay for a better company, it's okay to pay a little bit more to work with someone that it's better, because they understand that if you add all these different smaller parts together, they add more than each one individually. So you can work with better suppliers, you can have access to better customers, and you can work with better people because you're attracting better talent. So if you start putting all those things together and play it out throughout a couple of years of existence, you undoubtedly will become a better company. And if you're a better company, you can extract better margins, you can grow faster, and you can actually be more successful, both from a strategic standpoint, but then also financially, which of course is very important for all businesses out there.
Yeah, we forget about that part. The old no margin, no mission, no profit, no purpose. But also, like you said, like as we grow our business, though, like that, it allows you to hire more people, create more good jobs that people want to be at. It allows you to scale your impact and scale some of those. I always say my old job, I got a percentage of revenue was what I got to play with for my purpose budget and my, our strategic impact budget. So you grow that revenue number and that percentage goes up, and now you can ship more containers to the Ukraine or to Africa or to wherever needs some aid. You can be the person that steps up and goes, we've got some budget left.
Absolutely. And it's not only non for profits, because I think that's a mistake that people usually ask me about. We work with a lot of automotive companies. We work with GM, we work with General Motors, Nemac, Brembo, Faurecia. So we work with a lot of very sophisticated, challenging companies shipping expedited shipments. And it's all really because of the culture we have built. And it's really all because of the approach that we have towards maximizing stakeholder value as opposed to just focusing on bottom line all the time.
If there's somebody out there that's listening, because and I mean a
I
lot.
hope
I mean,
there
it's
are at least one or two. My mom will be listening.
my mom, my dad heard me on a podcast one time. He goes, "I think I finally understand what you do." Thanks. Okay. But if there are any business owners out there listening that are like, how did you come around to this, like leveraging some of this storytelling for good and talking about the good you're putting out in the world? I mean, you just mentioned kind of the business drivers, but how did you get there, and what advice would you give to maybe another business owner who's a little hesitant to, like, we just do it because it's the right thing, and we're not going to brag about it, we're not going to talk about it? What advice would you give them to kind of like maybe get them on board with the good storytelling pledge?
It's definitely a good question, right? And we don't see ourselves as bragging about what we do. We do think it's important to share it because, as you mentioned at the beginning, if you don't hear these stories from other companies, then it's hard to get inspired. And so I do get inspired by a lot of the companies that are doing this on a day to day basis. A lot of different books, a lot of Sapos, a great company, and Cotopaxi and Patagonia, one of my favorite companies out there. So if you don't listen or hear the stories, it's harder to kind of like understand the value that they bring to the world and how profitable they can be, despite the fact that they have a different culture. But now, how did I personally manage that? I really think that it's just partnering with good people. I've always tried to partner with people that are smarter than I am, which is pretty much everyone in my team. And through them, they actually came up with a way of really story lining what we do and how we do it, and they've actually been very successful at that. So I guess Christy Porter and her team would be one of the people that I would love to publicly acknowledge and thank, because she came in to our company and really changed this particular aspect that we were really not doing a good job with.
Because it is a scary thing to, not, again, brag is the wrong word, but it's a scary thing because you have one side who's ready to go like, oh, gotcha, but there's an art to how you talk about the good you do, and Christy seems to have if there's a master's of arts or some sort
Right.
of graduate degree in telling good stories, she has it.
So having a good storyteller helps, and I would encourage business owners to really just get advice or get support from someone that actually does this for a living. There's a lot of good companies and a lot of good people that are trying to rephrase company stories so that they represent what they really do. The other part of the equation to that is really just just doing it, just being honest and being vulnerable, right? In other words, you should not really care what other people think of you, right? So if people say, well, you're just doing it because you're bragging, I'm like, you know what? Whatever helps you sleep at night, right? I don't, if you don't like it, or if you don't care, if you don't want to work with us, it's too bad, right? I think that we can add value to your company, but if you don't really want to work with a company like us because of X, Y, or C, then so be it. I'm not saying that you're wrong. You might be right. I mean, but you don't have to really stress too much out about what other people think. I think that it is important that you do understand what kind of company you have and what kind of culture your employees have, and you can all come together and openly say, "This is what we stand for." I feel like that kind of corporate shyness is dumb, really. I think companies should just say what they are and what they stand for, and people can decide whether they want to work with them or not. And again, without picking sides, right? You just have to be respectful and work with whoever you think represents your values the best.
Yeah. And there's plenty of business to go around. I like that advice though. Just yeah. I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, the more I do, and the more I get out there. Yeah, you're never gonna. If your goal is to please everybody, then you probably shouldn't be a business owner.
Absolutely. And I feel like at some point, maybe this is more on a personal level, but I sometimes feel like the more I'm pissing people, the if you're pissing people constantly in certain ways, it might be a good indicator that you're onto something better, right? So you can't avoid that either.
You know, what's funny is I grew up reffing hockey. I mean, I reffed hockey well into my 20s. And I always said at the end of the game, if both teams are yelling at me, I did a pretty good job.
Yes, absolutely.
If
Yes.
only one team's yelling at me, I might have missed something. But if both teams are unhappy with the referee, then all right. Well, at least I was bad, equally bad in both directions, but I was probably fair. So one other thing I want to unpack is you touched on it there, and it's something that impresses me about you, and it's another piece of like I think area of opportunity for you to kind of give some insights to entrepreneurs listening to this. Like, so you run a business, you have a family, you have kids. Where do you find the time? How do you manage your time? Whatever that answer is to like, I mean, your conscious capitalism events, B Corp events, you're at conferences, but also you're like a student of the game. You're always reading books, you're listening to podcasts, you're like you said, you're trying to put smart people around you, but that is also just in the media you consume where you're always trying to become a better version of yourself. So how do you manage that? Like, where I mean, my first couple of years of business ownership, I'm like, who has time to read? But I'd be curious to unpack that a little bit because you've found a consistency that I think has made you a better business leader.
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate your comment and trust and confidence in me. I would like to start by saying I I'm terrible at this. I don't think if I am going to be the my own judge about this, I don't think I do a particularly good job. What I do think I do is I don't believe in work life balance, right? So I and no one in my company believes in work life balance. We believe that life is way more important than work. Work is just a little component of it. And so what we're trying to do is really to be present for things that are very important. It could be at home, it could be at work, it could be with my kids. So for me, I prioritize my children and my family. So I try to be at as many soccer games as I possibly can. I try to take Emma to as many volleyball tournaments that I can. And so when it comes to that, I try to focus my attention to that. Um, when it comes to work, you have to rely on your team. I have a strong team, and of course, you have to work hard. There's no other way around it. Um, I don't sleep much, so I think that that might be also part of the equation. But no, I feel like at least for me, I do feel like I have an area of opportunity there. I think I could do a better job. There's tons of really cool tools that can help you summarize books so you can listen to a couple of books a week without having to read them. There's a couple of other technological tools that can help you be more efficient at work, especially when reading emails. I have a lot of rules on my emails, so I don't have to waste time reading them. I actually just have them in categories, and certain people I read first, certain people I read later, and it's just creating a habit, right? Just really, it's hard, right? creating those habits is hard, but I think it pays off at the end. And again, by no means I should be talking about this because I still feel like I need to learn a lot about this.
I think that therein is the lesson, though. That it's the journey's never over. You're never going to be like the perfect CEO.
No, and you always make mistakes. I make tons of mistakes and I keep making them. And at the end of the day, my priority is my kids, and I just demonstrate that every time that I can. So, hey, and I feel like those mistakes are definitely more impactful and riskier than just if you make a mistake as a business owner or an entrepreneur. So I that's one thing you can say. I'm quick to acknowledge when I make a mistake. I apologize as often as I can, and I try to learn from others, and I try to learn from my mistakes, and I really try new ways of doing similar things that sometimes backfire and sometimes do help. But I guess not being afraid of making mistakes and instilling the confidence in my team and my family to make mistakes has also been key to dealing with the life and the times that we live on.
Well, I love that. I love what you said about work life balance because I've had a lot of conversations around that lately. I mean, I run the B culture call, so that topic comes up, and I'm curious to get your take on this because I can't not after you were like, I don't believe in work life balance. I can't not follow up on that. Like, are we chasing like a mythical dragon that we need to slay? Like, we're chasing. Are we chasing something with technology on our phones and laptops at home? And now we all learned how to work from home. Even if we're back in the office, we're hybrid. Like, are we chasing this mythical creature that is a work life balance that we have to realize? Maybe A, we can't catch it, and B, maybe we're chasing the wrong thing. Of like you touched on that, like prioritizing being human and being present in your life, and then how do we fit work in around that, where we do get back to that kind of that results only work environment? Like, how do we? I mean, am I crazy, or are we kind
Oh,
of?
that's a very fair assessment of what I think we're actually trying to do. And I don't know if it's more here in this country or this side of the world. I feel like if you go to Asia, might be perceived a little bit differently. But I feel like we are chasing something that might not be as shiny as it really is, right? We're trying to accomplish something that 10, 20 years down the road, we're going to look backwards and say, I wish I would have gone out a little bit more often, right? Like your friend in Boulder. I mean, are we really sure that we're prioritizing the right things? And I'm not sure. And I think that's something that everyone kind of has to answer for themselves. But we only have one life. It's ridiculously short. So cramming in a couple of extra meetings on a Friday afternoon so you can see the sales reports, or disconnecting from your phone and going out. And it doesn't have to be work related, right? I think that we're overusing technology and social media and the phones. So I feel like technology is a great tool, and I'm a huge proponent of using it and then also learning. And I'm fascinated by the advances, and they could be very positive for humankind. But then some of them are just dumb. I mean, screen times I've read is about 4 to 5 hours a day for some teenagers, and sometimes even more. So imagine 6 hours a day times 10 years. I mean, how much time are we wasting on looking at a phone?
I was about what
Yeah, I
33,
don't.
18, like 21, 20,000 hours if my napkin
Yeah, and
math
then
is.
if you actually do want to make the math, I mean, how much of that is in years? And anyways, the point is, I don't think we should have more than an hour of screen time, and that's considering the fact that you use the phone to text and call and whatever, right? So yeah, at some point, I'm hopeful that that's going to change, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I think as we start to see some of the repercussions and the ramifications of the addiction, that maybe we'll get better at. Because I notice even sometimes where I'm like reading news articles, but I'm still on my phone. I just start, and so at least I'm like not doing like I'm not just like death scrolling Instagram, but I'm death scrolling like New York Times articles. Where like how many of these can I read? And at what point am I just like, is it just entertaining me? I'm not even really reading for knowledge. I'm just scrolling through words.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for indulging me there because I was curious to kind of talk about that because I think I'm firmly in the we're chasing something that isn't real, and I think we have to figure out a way to live and fit work in and not necessarily, and also still realize like being in logistics, some days are harder than others. I remember like I what we used to haul food, so any holiday, I hated holidays because the shelves are stocked because my truck driver and I were working on Christmas, like those types of
Right.
things are like but there are also times where you're like, oh, it's slow season, and that's when I go on vacation, and that's when you do the thing, and or I can come in at 5 and everybody can run the office from 2 o'clock on. At 2 o'clock I can go to the gym and I'm done with work already. You figure out how to kind of make it work in even some of the most stressful of industries. I think we should strive for more of that than trying to put it in a square box and it must fit in this.
And that's basically the principle behind the coming full circle back to the book, Why Work Sucks and the Results Only Work Environment. That's basically the principle behind the book. So you just summarize the book for everyone that hasn't read it and actually wants to understand about what results only work environment feels like, right? It's just giving that time management component back to the employees and measuring performance by results only and forgetting about wasted time, wasted driving, etc.
Yeah. Last question I have for you. So, I mean, y'all were already doing all this work. There wasn't a lot that when we went into the B impact assessment that we were like, oh my God, Vector needs so much help here. We have so many improvements we need to make. Most everything was already there. So the question begins, why? Why go through all the hurdles? And because I get this from CFOs and CEOs like, well, what's the ROI for me? Why would I get, or we already do these things. Why do we need a certification to put on the window or the website? Like, why, what was it about getting through that hurdle that kind of made you go, you know what, we're going after this certification. And then you get into it and you go, oh God, what have I gotten myself into?
Right.
But we're going to get this certification come hell or high water.
Well, I feel like for us, it was already embedded in our culture, but we're growing really fast. And with growth comes like this change in culture because it's something that you can't really control. If you go from 20 employees to 160 or to whatever, then you start to kind of lose track a little bit of what you really wanted to achieve in the first place and something that you actually had very well under control when you were 20 of you and your old friends, basically. It starts to erode a little bit. So the first thing that we thought to apply for the certification was we need to measure it. We believe in measuring things in order for us to continue improving. And if we didn't have like all the metrics necessary to measure purpose. And so I feel like the B Corp and B certification, it's a really good way for companies to not only validate the culture they have, but more importantly, to give them an assessment, which is incredibly thorough. And it's broken down into many, many different parts. So you can just simply say, and you get a score, right? So I kind of like the scores. I think I've always liked scores in my life. But that way you can be like, well, are you purpose driven? How purpose driven are you? Where could you be more purpose driven? What are the areas of opportunity? What are some of the things that you could do better? What are some of the things that you probably don't need to do more? And so that was something very interesting to us because it was going to put our claim that we're a purpose driven organization into proof. Once we have the scores and continue to recertify is the goal, and that's something that's going to continuously give us the opportunity to improve and be better. The other thing is there is a good certification to have because some companies, especially in Europe, because I feel like the program's a little bit better understood and it's a little bit more developed in companies in Europe with sustainability and purpose driven. The certification does give you an opportunity to work with companies that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. So it's a good way of differentiating your company. And of course, if I find a supplier out there or a client that I know it's a B Corp or it's a part of the B certification process, I feel like I'm already a little bit closer connected to them and they feel the same way. So it is a good way for us to go after potential new leads and win more business. And then down the road, which I don't think is going to be too long down the road, this is going to be a requirement if you want to bid on certain business. We already saw it not as a requirement, but as a couple of questions on Volkswagen's RFQ, which is super interesting and exciting, right? To see that companies as big, if you will, as Nestle or Volkswagen or Nespresso or Patagonia or those others, they're actually starting to request that their suppliers are B certified. So it's something that we thought, hey, we can go through this now, or we'll have to go through it in the future, and we'd rather be one of the first as opposed to just being the late follower. And at the end of the day, we believe that it was the right thing to do, and it does help you on your marketing too. But I don't think that that's the main reason. It's having a score, getting into more interesting suppliers and clients, and then of course helping you on the marketing and helping you validate what we have been saying since we started this company, which is purpose gives us a competitive advantage and has helped us work with many different industries around the world, and so we'll continue doing that.
It's awesome. Yeah, and it's always I mean there's just so much there that it's incredible. I love that the kind of the founding values of the company. It's kind of like this is our proof that we walk the walk. And everything else that comes with it is great. We're excited for that. But yeah, this is our proof that we are definitely walking the walk.
And now you have like a third party say that, not us, right? Because it's easier to believe your own, I guess, ideology if it's just you and your team and your company and your friends. But it's a completely different thing when you basically just open up, which is what having the certification means, because you're really, really opening up all the information, all the processes, all the software, all the systems. It's a thorough certification, which really validates the importance of what B Corp does. So I want to be very thankful for what they do. And I'm really thankful that they're taking it so seriously, because that actually just makes us feel even more proud about the certification itself.
Yeah. And then you can't buy your way into it. We all know that.
Not at all. Not at all.
Halfway through the process, you're like, could I?
You can't get help, right? We started on our own and we said, no, we need someone that can help us as a consultant. And again, it's very important to recognize that we can do things by ourselves all the time. I think most of the time you need other people to help you in whatever initiative or adventure that you want to do. And so we're totally okay raising our hands and asking for help. And actually, I would have probably asked for your help a little bit earlier in the process. So if anyone else is listening to this, getting someone that's done through this before, it's totally worth it, and it's an invaluable partner to actually accomplish your goal.
Same way, like if I need to ship a container or something across the Atlantic, Google could tell me what I need to do, but I'll probably just pick up the phone instead because it's easier that way. Oh, Enrique, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad we finally got to make this happen, and I'm glad we let all the listeners be a fly on the wall for one of our conversations.
Thank you so much. It's always fun, and I look forward to the next time. Thank you so much to everyone listening to your show as well, and thank you for doing the show because it's very important as well.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Be the Change Georgia. We're grateful, as always, for the opportunity to serve you with this content and grow this incredible community of purpose-driven B Corp leaders. If you haven't already, we would be grateful for you to rate this show wherever you get your podcasts by simply tapping the number of stars you think it deserves and sharing it with a friend. This helps us get the word out and continue to use our collective influence as a force for good. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help from our production team at Chat with Leaders Media. Learn how you can launch your own podcast to grow your business at chatwithleaders.com. Thanks again for listening, and now go be a leader worth following.